Team USA women's basketball just went undefeated at the FIBA Women's World Cup qualifiers.
When quiet becomes power, what happens? On a stuffy night in Puerto Rico, Caitlin Clark made her debut for the United States women's national basketball team. She rewrote the script with 17 points, 12 assists, 0 turnovers, perfect control, absolute precision, and history in real time. However, while one player was making history in silence, another was making headlines in chaos because of what Angel Reese said that same week. Let's go back to the beginning of this tournament because the context matters. This was the FIBA World Cup qualifying event. The United States women's national team was expected to win. However, the true question going into it was not whether they would prevail, but rather who would be in charge. In the first game against Senegal, head coach Cara Lawson decided to start Chelsea Gray at point guard. Gray is a well-liked veteran. In the first 35 seconds of that game, it became clear that something was amiss, even though no one questioned it. Senegal instantly put pressure on the ball handler with an aggressive full-court blitz, breaking the flow and blocking passing lanes before the attack could begin. When Clark checked in off the bench, Gray was having trouble, the ball was moving choppily, the spacing was incorrect, and the intensity seemed flat. Now take a moment to consider this. She is making her senior national team debut after more than 8 months of not playing a genuine game. The stakes are high, the crowd is boisterous, and she does not back down from the defense that just shook a seasoned point guard. She doesn't think twice. She pushes the pace before the defender can recover, reads the blitz as if she has seen it 1,000 times, and begins threading passes to teammates who have barely finished their cuts. It was awful, serene, and surgical. Team USA won that game 110-46 with 17 points, 12 assists, 0 turnovers, and 19 minutes. When questioned about it afterwards, Clark did not mention nerves. Rust was not mentioned by her. She simply expressed her excitement. Above all, I'm just thrilled to be here and to play basketball once more. The 5 games left will be exciting. Thrilled. She enters an international tournament after being away for 8 months and performs as if she had never left. She seemed to be waiting for someone to give her the ball once more. Furthermore, those 12 assists weren't only noteworthy at the time. They had historical significance. The highest assist total ever recorded in a senior national team debut was achieved in only 1 game. Not only for Team USA, but for every player from every nation in the history of international basketball. In addition, she achieved the fastest double-double in Team USA debut history. She also became the only player, male or female, from any country to record a double-double in their debut senior national team game. That's all off the bench. That's all in 19 minutes. After 239 days of quiet, all of that. I want you to take a time to consider that, because what followed strangely became even more bizarre with a complete devastation of the tournament. It was truly impossible to put the genie back in the bottle after that initial game. In her few minutes off the bench and over the entire tournament, Clark had demonstrated her abilities. She hammers down a big one after missing her first 7. Describe a person who was functioning on a separate frequency than everyone else in the building. Clark finished with 32 assists in all 5 games. In every game she participated in, that led every member of Team USA. Not the majority of games. Each and every game. Her average was 11. 6 points and 4 assists every game. Instead of the 35-minute marathons that the majority of featured players record in international competitions, she completed everything in about 19-minute bursts. This statistic, however, truly puts everything in perspective. Over the course of the event, her plus-minus was plus 109. Not only was that the highest score on Team USA, but it was also the highest score of any player from any nation during the competition. Each team, every player, every roster. There is a lot of skill on this roster. Several of our guys are making their San Juan debuts. Even though she was fighting the flu for a portion of the tournament, Clark was the most influential person on any Puerto Rican court that week. Nate Tibbetts, the head coach of the Phoenix Mercury, took over after the first game and made a choice that altered everything. He reorganized the offense around a guard-heavy pace and space approach and put Clark in the starting lineup. This type of strategy allows Clark to do what she does best: identify cutters early, accelerate, and create open looks before defenses have a chance to change positions. The outcome was instantaneous. Watch as Team USA's subsequent match against New Zealand resulted in a 55-point victory, 101-46. Clark had the team's greatest efficiency rating of 18 and played the most minutes, 23, of any player on the squad. Following the game, Tibbetts made a public statement that coaches rarely make. It was a mistake, he argued, to not start Clark earlier. A head coach publicly acknowledging that the prior game plan was incorrect, that the solution was clear, and that they ought to have realized it sooner. In professional sports, that doesn't occur. Coaches defend their choices. They use hedging. They reroute. Tibbetts simply stated it outright. She ought to have begun at the outset. The figures were astounding by the conclusion of the week. 14 world records broken. He is the youngest MVP in the qualifying event's history. Caitlin Clark is the tournament's SVP, and the first ever MVP award given to a player who played off the bench for the majority of the competition. It's worth repeating the final one. Despite not even starting the majority of the games, she received the tournament's most valuable player title. No one else on the field, starter or not, could match her dominance in the few minutes she had. And how did she react after receiving the prize? She continued by attending the subsequent game. Just more basketball, no social media celebration, no victory lap. That's what sets Clark apart from the other participants in this discussion. When the award is presented, the work doesn't end. Because the labor never stops, the award appears. The empire outside the court. Let's take a moment to take a break from basketball, as what Clark is creating off the court is perhaps just as remarkable as what she is doing on it. And I'm not kidding when I say that her 24-year-old commercial portfolio resembles that of an athlete nearing the end of a Hall of Fame career. Not a player starting her second full season in the WNBA. Let's start with Nike. The largest Nike endorsement contract is held by Clark. The basketball sensation is set to sign one of the biggest Nike endorsement deals in WNBA history, for $28 million. Not the best rookie contract. The best deal, no matter what. Furthermore, the contract structure differs from that of a standard athlete sponsorship, which involves filming a few commercials and putting a brand on some shoes. A signature shoe line with revenue sharing is part of it. Nike typically saves that kind of deal for players like Michael Jordan and LeBron James. At 24, that is the tier in which Clark operates on a commercial basis. Wilson comes next. With Wilson's signature line of athletic goods, Clark is the first athlete since Michael Jordan to be treated that way by the company. Allow that to land. Michael Jordan was the last person Wilson created a special signature product line around, and Caitlin Clark was the next. She was signed by State Farm, making her the first female athlete to represent the company as a principal ambassador rather than in a supporting position in a commercial. The campaign's face. In the past, State Farm has allocated its largest marketing budgets to NBA players and NFL quarterbacks. After taking at the scenery, they concluded that Clark should be in the forefront. Then Gatorade entered the picture with a contract that was explicitly said to be unprecedented for a female athlete. Nike, Wilson, State Farm, and Gatorade are now listed in the portfolio. That is not an endorsement list of a basketball player. That is a marketing tactic used by Fortune 500 companies. And then include Prada for good measure. At the age of 24, Clark is venturing into the world of luxury fashion by collaborating with one of the world's most recognizable brands. Few athletes, regardless of gender, enter that arena at this early stage of their careers, and those who do typically remain there for decades. An even more amazing story is revealed by the actual data. Clark earned an estimated $8 during her debut season alone. $1 million from endorsements. Additionally, she received a base WNBA salary of $70,000 that year. She is only earning $76,000 in her first season. She made 115 times as much money off the court as she did on it. The majority of seasoned WNBA players, women who have played for 10 years, do not make as much money from sponsorships during their whole careers as Clark did in her first year. She was listed by Forbes as one of the most influential women in sports, not just women's basketball. Not the WNBA in particular. Sports in general, in all leagues and disciplines. Additionally, Sportico's methodology for selecting the most prominent female athletes involved more than just Google search volume and Instagram followers. They were assessing the capacity to truly change markets, commercial reach, and cultural influence. Every single box is checked by Clark. She set a record for WNBA attendance in her debut season. Networks that had never made a significant investment in women's basketball began writing larger checks as a result of the record-breaking television ratings her games generated. Not only did she join the WNBA, but she also transformed the way the league's business is run. Arenas that had never sold out for a women's game were suddenly turning people away at the door, sponsors entered the market, and television arrangements increased in value. And before she had even played a full second season, all of that occurred in year one. Here, business and basketball are one and the same. They tell the same tale, feeding one another in a never-ending cycle. On the court, she is dominant. The commercial value comes next. Because she continues to dominate, the commercial value increases. Both sides of that equation are still flowing straight up with no ceiling insight going into the 2026 season with the Indiana Fever. One league, two routes, a widening gap. The opposite side of the tale must now be discussed since without it, the whole picture cannot be presented. Angel Reese was making headlines of a whole other type, while Clark was breaking 62 records in her debut WNBA season and redefining what a first-year player was even permitted to look like. Reese seems to have had a successful debut season. In terms of rebounding, she led the league. Indeed, that sounds impressive. We've discussed how skillful Angel Reese is when facing the hoop, she just takes baseline nicely. However, throughout the entire season, experts were recording something that alters how you interpret that figure. Offensive rebounds from her own missed jumpers accounted for a sizable chunk of Reese's rebounding total. Was she clutching her own missing at the rim? And that rebound was counted in the same way as a disputed grab in traffic or a clean defensive board. In essence, she was receiving statistical credit for correcting her own errors. Throughout the entire season, analysts from a variety of sources made this point, and the data amply supported it. Therefore, the picture is not close when comparing the two rookie seasons. On the one hand, Clark's 62 records changed the way the Indiana Fever's offensive operated, causing the largest increases in television viewership that the WNBA had seen in years. Reese, on the other hand, is calling it production while snatching her own misses. No one in Reese's corner wants to make that comparison aloud. Additionally, the gap remained open in the second year. Clark continued to surpass the previous record with more assists, more effective scoring, and more proof that she was performing at a level the league had not witnessed from a guard in a very long time. Additionally, Clark's roster is not a charity case. One of the top interior players in the league is Aaliyah Boston. Kelsey Mitchell is an all-around scorer. Every night, Lexi Hull performs the hard work, hustling plays, and defensive responsibilities that no one wants. Sophie Cunningham contributes shooting and toughness. The 2026 FIBA projection becomes quite intriguing very quickly when you place Clark's playmaking at the core of a team like that. And this is what the FIBA competition truly demonstrated on a worldwide scale. With partners she had seldom rehearsed with, Clark entered an entirely unfamiliar setting. Within days, she was setting records once more in a system that was not initially built with her abilities in mind. 14 of them. That is not an anomaly. In a one-week competition, that is not a hot streak. She accomplished the same thing in her first year of the WNBA, although it was condensed into 1 week. New location, new people, same outcome. The 62 records in the first year were not hype, and the difference between Clark's and Reese's career paths continued to widen, not just on the court but also in ways that were beginning to appear somewhere far more obvious, public, and costly. Reality meets hype. This is the point at which everything comes together, since it is now difficult to overlook the commercial disparity between these two actors, and the causes are straightforward. For Clark's signature shoe brand, Nike is currently stepping up its complete marketing apparatus. The launch is anticipated to be massive. Her distinctive shoe is expected to sell out in a matter of minutes, according to industry observers. Not minutes, not hours, not days. Furthermore, such prognosis is not predicated on optimism. As soon as they were released, her Kobe Player Edition sneakers were resold for twice the retail price. Even before the official debut of her signature line, secondary marketplaces are already experiencing the actual, quantifiable demand. One of Angel Reese's Reebok shoes is currently on clearance racks at a discounted price at the precise moment all of that is taking place. There was much anticipation when her distinctive sneaker debuted. Fans want to get their hands on Reese's Reeboks, or perhaps I should say feet in. It was marketed as a significant brand alliance for an up-and-coming WNBA star. After then, nothing occurred. The sneakers weren't sold out. They didn't create any buzz. They appeared marked down, collecting dust on shelves in bargain bins. That is one of the worst outcomes for a hallmark shoe, and Reebok hasn't just been observing the poor sales in silence. According to reports, they have completely stopped supporting Reese's shoe line with marketing.